Good afternoon. I'd like to call this meeting of the Joint Legislative Audit and Review Committee's Study Topic Selection Subcommittee to order. It looks like we've got everybody on the subcommittee here except for Senator McDougall, and he may be still hanging around eating his lunch. So Mr. Greer, if you want to go ahead and kick us off.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the subcommittee. I'm Hal Greer, the staff director of JLARC. We appreciate you coming together today to consider the work of the staff for the coming calendar year. At this time, I'm going to quickly pass it over to Justin Brown, JLARC Senior Associate Director, who's going to take you through the staff slide presentation. Justin?
Thank you, Hal. We've got some slides coming up here momentarily. Thank you for sticking with us after the full JLARC meeting. The task this morning is fairly straightforward. We'd like to start the process of identifying our 2026 study topics. And these would be studies that we would start soon and most likely report out to you in the summer and fall of next year. And this is an opportunity for you to propose topics and give us some direction about which topics you're most interested in. And what we'll do is after this meeting, we'll do a little bit of additional research on those topics, including by looking at the level of effort that might be required. And then after we identify some of those potential topics this morning, we've got one slide at the end about some of our economic development incentives. So we'll do that after them.
Just actually this afternoon already, just so you.
You know what? You're correct about that, yes. So just by way of background, the General Assembly has already given us two topics through joint resolution. The first item there is to assess the judicial allocation methodology. And that's a substantial effort that require a full-size team and maybe some consultant support. So that'll occupy one of the slots. There's a second item that's a narrower topic, and we actually have until 2028 to complete that. So for the purposes of this meeting, you don't need to worry about that second one in terms of our workload. So the subcommittee needs to recommend at least 4 study topics. And again, these would be in addition to the judicial allocation study. So how many studies we can do each year kind of depends on how big each study is. We might be able to finish more studies next year if some have a narrower scope. And just as a reminder, even if you give us too much, historically we've just kind of put those in what we call a pipeline of studies. We can just kind of get to those as our staff free up if that's something you want us to do. The other thing, just by way of transparency, if things come up during the session and you want those to be a bigger priority, you can pass those through joint resolution and we'll just set one of these aside. So you have that flexibility. Just a reminder about the types of studies we usually do. We can review specific policy areas, including things that you might want to do legislatively that you would value our input on. More often, though, we evaluate specific programs and program areas and review agency operations and management. The way we think about what's a good JLARC study, obviously are things that should be of interest or important to you, but also needs to have some specific researchable questions that we can answer in an objective, nonpartisan way. And ideally, there would be a potential to improve operations or efficiency, reduce unnecessary costs, or help you think about a policy that you're considering. So unlike in some past years, the rules committees didn't refer any studies to JLARC. So we're down to 2 potential sources. Ideas you or your constituents may have. We have some thoughts as well that we'll walk you through afterwards. But Mr. Chairman, I'll pause here for any ideas that members may have, and then we can go to some of our ideas.
All right. So anybody have some ideas for the staff? Senator Eben.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is more a question because I don't know if it's appropriate for JLARC to be studying it, but there are going to be some changes required because of the large federal bill on dealing with benefits in a lot of other areas. And I was just wondering whether it's something that we know if Department of Planning and Budget would already be working on, or if there needs to be increased attention on things like our Medicaid enterprise system and platforms, whether it can accommodate a shift to twice yearly eligibility redetermination, evaluating eligibility for federal programs, and how that bill requires the Commonwealth to change its systems. I don't know that it's a JLARC type of topic, but I presume someone in the state must be or needs to be reviewing it. And do we have any sense?
Senator Urban, I think that's an important question, something we've talked about. On the one hand, I think we can always look at things that you would like us to look at, but some of those things are fairly fluid, and some of them are also fairly technical. So I think our decision at this point has been to not try to kind of look into that directly, but I'd be interested in if other members have that. I know there's certainly on the broader side, there's already been a lot of attention in terms of kind of some of the federal impact on Northern Virginia, but
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
Robin?
just to reply, I mean, my goal is just to make sure that the state is enabled to provide whatever information or qualification is required, whether it's through JLARC seeing what changes would be needed or whether the administration is already on all that.
and so that would specifically be on the Medicaid side?
Well, Medicaid,
Or just
and
more
I
broadly?
think there was SNAP, anything that requires changes to our state systems to qualify for federal assistance and programs that the state plays a role in.
All right. Anyone else? See, I have, so I have one that I did peek ahead at the slides. I know you're going to talk a little bit about a staff idea was assisted living, but I was just at a breakfast of the Northern Virginia Aging Network, and they revealed their 2026 legislative agenda. And one of their items was a study. They wanted to request a study of affordable housing options that addresses the prospective range of care provided in independent assisted living and nursing homes. I know you guys talked about assisted living generally, and your focus might be slightly different than this one, but again, this goes to a little bit to Senator Evans' concern that impending federal changes to Medicaid create an urgent need for what they're calling a comprehensive assessment of the varied systems of care for older Virginians and how those all work together. So I mean, we have independent facilities, so sort of a survey of what's available, what options are available, what the need's going to be as we have a growing, we're all getting older, we're all aging, we're all going to need a place to live as we go forward, and then sort of what the current sort of stock of availability is, where there might be deficiencies or shortcomings that we need to plan for in the future, and then what funding challenges there are for making those things affordable. I think something like that, and again, maybe work into what you guys had in mind for assisted living as well.
Well, Mr. Chairman, that's not terribly dissimilar to what we were thinking, and I probably that would be one area where we could take some guidance kind of generally to go think about that, and I think we could round out the study resolution to the extent there's interested in that, but I don't know if you want to add to that, but I think there's a whole range of maybe different ways of thinking about how the state kind of facilitates and supports assisted living care. I think we could probably put something together on that. Would you buy that? Yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, the Joint Commission on Healthcare did a study on long-term care a couple years ago that might be useful to look at this. We do not have a Medicaid benefit for assisted living, and some states do. I think that it would have to be pretty narrow if we did it. We do have for the dementia memory care issue, you have a population that needs to have congregate care, but can still not fail the 4 out of 5 activities of daily living. That's what you need to fail to get into a SNF or a skilled nursing facility. And so it's very hard to get into a skilled nursing facility in Virginia because you have to have only $2,000 net worth and fail 4 out of the 5. But assisted living obviously can help people that can dress themselves, toilet themselves, things like that, but they need to be behind a locked door, for instance. It would be a very expensive thing to have an assisted living benefit because our assisted living in Northern Virginia anyway is out, it's very, very expensive. And what we're trying to do now is to keep everybody in their home as long as possible. That's what our goal is. And to the degree that we can do that, everybody wants that. But when that fails, you might need what are the narrow circumstances when that fails, when you can't keep someone in their home as long as possible, but they don't qualify for skilled nursing? That is a place where I think we need to consider an assisted living benefit. Thank you.
Understood.
Thank you. Delegate Rasool.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think 3 spots that are of interest specifically. So the big topic is artificial intelligence, and then the impact in 3 areas in particular. But it would, of course, have a good conversation with JCOTS and maybe some other stakeholders. I think that even the governor has some thoughts or some initiatives here, but particularly because it's so ever-changing, but on workforce, artificial intelligence on and the impact on education. And then a more niche topic is the impact on information dissemination, just generally. And I think that would be a spot where we could talk with JCOT, see what they're doing, and potentially consider where we can add value to the conversation.
Delegate Rasool, could you say a little bit more? So the information dissemination part of that, were you thinking kind of specifically in the education and workforce areas, or you're thinking more broadly there?
Yeah, broader than that. In particular, maybe the impacts of, I was going to leave it to your imagination a little bit, but the reality is maybe the impacts on how AI is impacting fraudulent information dissemination and what that means to us.
Oh, I see.
Impacts of deep fakes, et cetera. We see more sophisticated scams, especially that are occurring with our older Virginians, for example, and you can get a phone call from a voice that you recognize telling you to do something, and all of that is a scam. So I blanketed that with information dissemination, but you can call it whatever you want, and whether it be digitally or otherwise, and how we can kind of start to get ahead of that. I feel like regulatorily we're a step behind with AI in general.
Understood.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator McDougall.
Mr. Chairman, as I flip back through the packet, my thought about JLARC and what it should do might not be the thought that everybody else has, so I'll just put that out there. But my thought is JLARC is looking at either existing government entities and how they can do things better, or policies that should be changed, or recommendations that could be made, not necessarily going into the larger policy decisions of a new area. There's some things I'm really concerned about, like the availability of baseload power. I don't necessarily think that that's a JLARC topic. I think it's an important topic and one we ought to look at, but I don't necessarily think it's a JLARC topic. Is there any thought about, or any consensus among you, Mr. Chairman, or others about the areas to focus what we study in order to be able to get good answers? I personally think, I saw DMAS on the list, I think we continue to see an increase in our spend and not getting the numbers right in our estimates. So I would like to know what could be done to get it right. I've tried some legislative things, if not been successful, we'll continue to try, but that seems like a more objective type of thing. Are there different things that we could require to get accurate information as we're making decisions? And so I don't know if that's everybody else's thought, but that would be my thought, that we look at where we can find objective data in order to kind of guide our policy decisions, as opposed to research of a new area. I agree, AI is a big deal, and I think you could probably get rid of every other topic and spend the whole year coming up with solutions and maybe not get all the right ones. But it's a big deal, but is that the best use of this commission?
Right. So, well, go ahead. Do you want to react to that?
Well, I was just going to say that I think we can do all manner of things, but to Senator McDougall's point, I think historically the bulk of our work has been on kind of assessing something that is currently either a state function or a local function. But we have done things before where they were kind of prospective. But I think the bread and butter is looking at kind of programs that exist now and whether they're doing a good job or fulfilling legislative intent. So that's all I would say to that, Mr. Chairman.
I do think we had we did a study on gaming before we sort of had gaming, right? And so that was sort of a big topic area, and it helped sort of guide our policy decisions moving forward. So sometimes we do look at an area where we're not necessarily involved yet, but we see it coming and try and do some best practices. But I think as far as where we are in the process right now, at this moment in the meeting, I think we're sort of spitballing, it's brainstorming, so we're still at there's no bad ideas stage yet. And I think what will happen is after this meeting, you guys are going to sort of narrow this down for us. And I know we have a next step slide, but you're going to sort of put things into study language as best you can. And then at our next meeting of the full committee, I guess last time we did it, but we'll take some of these recommendations and adopt them or not. But I hear you, Senator McDougall, as well. We've got a lot to do with existing stuff as well.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Delegate Rasool.
Just further point, I think the issue that we run into, and I appreciate the senator's point, the issue we run into is AI is becoming so disruptive. Like some projections are that a third of existing jobs in 10 years may be at least significantly disrupted, if not disappear as we know them. We're putting all this money into CTE, I mean, stuff that we can tangibly, like I understand building a welding program, you know? And the reality is the billions that we're investing, the question is what's the trajectory here? And so this is, I think, what's highly disruptive. So finding, spots where we realize, man, in 10 years, this is going to be very different, and how should we be spending our funding moving forward?
Mr. Chairman, maybe I could mention one thing too. I'm Kimberly Sartre. Oh, sorry, it's not on.
Go ahead, Kimberly.
Okay, I'm an associate director at JLARC, and JLARC does have ongoing oversight of VITA. And so the next meeting, we will be providing just a very high-level take on kind of what VITA is doing and, what's going on across state government. Again, this isn't an in-depth review, but we knew that's it's a hot topic, so we wanted to, just as part of our oversight, give you a little bit of, insight into what's going on, I guess, at the state level. So just want to let you know that's coming. We have talked to Jay Kotz just briefly also, and they are doing a lot of work on AI. And I don't remember right offhand, they've issued several reports. I think education is one area they're looking at, but we'd be happy to talk to them a little bit more and go back and look at what they've issued and what's on their work plan also to help give you a little better sense as to what they're looking at. They look at kind of more broadly than our oversight is with VITA and state government. They're looking more maybe at industry and broader.
You see, Mr. Chairman, they've already used AI to replace the question I was going to ask ahead of time. They've already thought through this. Thank you for your work.
How long before we're all replaced? Can't replace legislators. All right, anybody else have any thoughts for this stage? Senator McPike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Justin, can you refresh my memory about, I remember a resolution around the court system and Supreme Court and the organization of administrative functions, sort of tackling the different circuits operate completely different across the Commonwealth. I think I'm not sure we did a full report, but it was a resolution, I want to say 2017, 2018 timeframe. To me, that seems to be.
Mr. Chairman, Senator McPike, I think there have been resolutions, but we did not end up doing much work in that area before. But it's certainly a possibility, something we could take a look at.
So Mr. Chairman,
Senator McPike.
I'd be really interested. I've always been sort of perplexed. I'm not an attorney. I don't spend time in courts. However, my constituents across a wide swath do give me varying different stories in terms of the administrative and practical experience through our court system at almost every level. And it always sort of baffled me why we have such a varying degree of application of process, which has implications on law and people's experience. And from our constituents, sometimes our court is the one experience where they see our government in action, and that's what they see it, because sometimes court have the ability to take things from people. And so it always sort of baffled me how different experience that people have across the Commonwealth, and I would certainly be interested to understand a little bit more about that branch of government and its functions and administratively.
Senator McPike, I believe there was a resolution drafted. Talked about that, but to Hal's point, we never did anything. So one thing, we could go back and look at that draft resolution and add some thinking to it, but that does jog my memory. I think it was a commission-specific action, but we never asked to do the work. Okay, understood.
All right, anyone else? All right, you guys have some ideas.
We do, but there's some alignment here already, which is useful. So, So I won't say too much about DMAS, and Senator McDougall already mentioned this. This is one of the agencies we've historically looked at either in whole or parts, but the idea here would be specifically to kind of look at the MCO oversight and performance role that DMAS has, and there's obviously been this big long-term shift towards managed care. It's obviously a really critical component of how this whole system works. MCOs are these regionally large, complex organizations. Senator McDougall said, obviously, I think the general fund component of Medicaid is up to almost $6 billion annually. I think it's 25 or 26 in total. But if that's something you're interested in, we could flesh out the study resolution. I think less looking at DMAS broadly as an agency and more precisely on kind of that critical MCO management function. I think there was maybe a thought that in that incorporate looking into the new capitated rate for nursing home care. I think there was some discussion of that, so we could weave that in there.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just also add, based on Senator McDougall's point, we could certainly incorporate a look at the forecasting approach as part of that study, if y'all were to direct the study.
Yes.
And Mr. Chairman,
Senator
maybe
McDougall.
whether an independent legislative oversight would help with that forecasting accuracy? Because it's something we've seen regardless of whether the administration was Republican or Democrat, executive branch, there's been some big misses in those forecasts.
All right, so we're looking for 4 to 5, right?
Correct.
At the end of the day. Does anybody have any objection to this being one of the 4 or 5? I think this is probably a consensus item, so we can chalk this one down as
Mr. Chairman, if I could just add to that point, just to the impact of, we truly are on a cash basis in Virginia. And so the impact of being on that cash basis makes it highly volatile. And so, I feel like some of it we can't help, but I think just thinking through that.
All right. Again, staff will get back to us with some specifics. We'll have another chance to sort of wordsmith the different bullets and things that'll go into the study, but I think that's a good one. All right, Justin.
The other idea here would be to look at ABC. I think this has come up historically in some of the study subcommittee meetings, but we've never actually reviewed it whole as an agency, and it obviously plays a key part in the distribution of alcohol, and it's obviously become a key part of state revenue. I think it was over $600 million last year that go to a wide range of state programs. So the idea here would be to look at their general operations and performance. Right before the pandemic, they switched to being an authority instead of a state agency, give them some personnel and procurement flexibilities. I think similar to maybe some of the potential frustrations with Medicaid forecasting, I think there was a period of time when the forecasting on revenue coming out of ABC was a little bit challenging, so that's something we could work into that, as well as some other issues as well. But so the idea would be an agency review of ABC.
Would that, in agency review, would that include some of the internal controls and things like that? I know that there were some news articles about some folks rigging the bourbon lotteries and things like that.
Absolutely. I think we can structure these in a variety of ways, but typically when we look at an agency, if you remember back to when we looked at the health department, there were some big problems with kind of the financial management and internal controls. And so I think if we looked at that, particularly if there's interest, that's something we could certainly weave in.
Okay.
Very high volume of dollars and inventory, and so I think opportunities for things to not go well there, certainly.
You guys have never done ABC at all, or just not since it became an authority?
Oh, I don't think we've ever looked at it. There's been parts of it that we've looked at, and it's been related to some things, but I don't think we ever have.
Got it. I know that there's always, part of that may be a reluctance to get a recommendation or have you guys weigh in on the privatization question, right? That comes up. It's a very political issue.
It has.
From time to time. I don't know that we want to take that necessarily off the agenda or not, but I just comes to mind as maybe a reason that you guys have been asked sort of not to touch it.
And well, to just say, this was maybe 12 or 13 years ago, there was an idea to privatize it, and we looked at that and found that I believe the valuation for that was quite a bit off. And so that...
So you did look at that aspect?
We did that, and we were asked, I think it was a quick turnaround, early McDonnell administration maybe.
Gotcha. All right, anybody have any, again, we don't have to decide right this minute, but does anybody have any big objections? Think that's something we got to stay away from? It does seem like it's a big agency with lots of opportunities to find things, and it's ripe in that it hasn't been looked at before. All right, why don't we see what we have next?
So the bottom agency here, Mr. Chairman, it's called the Virginia Innovation Partnership Authority, and it does a variety of things to encourage innovation in the economy. It's a relatively new agency. It purports to bring together entrepreneurs and researchers to focus on startups, commercial technology acceleration, and early stage capital investment. It was established in 2020. The funding has fluctuated quite a bit. There's been some changes to kind of what its role has been. It's historically in the $40 to $50 million range, and that's kind of a blend of general funds and other funds. But the idea here is basically to see this agency's been operating for 5 years or so. So just how is it going with that agency? I think there was also just some broader questions about specifically what the agency's role and focus is. So that would be something we could do there as well.
All right, Chairman Sickles likes that idea. Anybody else? All right. Unless something better comes along, we'll see. We're reserving. We're holding off on this one for a second.
You have options here. So the other thing I mentioned that we do quite a bit of is just reviewing specific programs or kind of program areas that maybe cut across agencies. So these last bucket of ideas are kind of similar to that. And I won't hit assisted living facilities again since we talked about that. But the first one there in terms of safe drinking water and food, it would be to look specifically at the state's role in kind of those two functions. So I think on the water side, obviously the problems that the city of Richmond had with its water system really surfaced the importance of the state's role there, particularly in terms of VDH being effective at regulating drinking water systems. And on the food safety side, there's kind of this, I think examples historically, Boarset is one, but there's been some others of issues with safety at food processing or food production facilities. So we could look at the VDAC's role specifically in that function. I feel like the VDH role would be a little bit more complex for us and take more time there, but we could bundle those both together under kind of a state government role in food and water safety. So that would be another idea if there's interest in that.
Tell me more about, again, the water systems piece of it. It's also, is that just making sure it's getting maintained properly and somebody has some oversight over the physical plant as well as? It seems like VDH kind of evaluates the quality of the water coming out of the tap, but everything's sort of upstream of that, for lack of a better term.
The way we were envisioning this was specifically kind of the health department's role. And I guess the way we understand it, these systems are fairly complex. And I think we've heard about some backlogs there. And you just read that a lot of the infrastructure, and it's typically municipal or regional structures, it's pretty old. It's getting difficult to find people who even know how it works. So I don't think we'd go broader water quality because that would make it a little bit too big. But it really focus on is the health department doing its job in terms of not just obviously the Richmond system, but all the systems across the state. These are multi-million-dollar systems, and they're big operations. A lot of people rely on them, as we saw here in Richmond.
Gotcha. And an opportunity for some cost avoidance through some preventive maintenance and things like that.
That's correct.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator McDougall.
I know that there are a number of private facilities that are regulated through the State Corporation Commission, and we have certainly seen as different ones have been purchased, have been similar types of things where the deferred maintenance has been substantial, and all of a sudden a community or an area of communities will be burdened with a large expense very quickly, but there's a necessity too, because if you don't upgrade it, then people won't have any water at all. So you might want to tap in some of those larger private but still regulated, and how that, because it also could give us some insights of how we're dealing with the public ones if we need to do anything with how we fund those or make sure that they come to fruition.
So, Senator, just to make sure I understand, so if nothing else, kind of there's a lessons learned component there potentially from the private sector.
I don't know that there's a lessons learned, but there might be.
Okay.
Well, I think also, if I'm understanding correctly, Senator, it was also making sure the scope includes the private systems that are regulated by VDH, not just the public and municipal systems.
Okay. We talked about assisted living facilities.
And I think my only comment on that, and I think what I was trying to get at, is the range too. I mean, so not just assisted living facility. I don't know how as you're using it in this context, sometimes that has a very narrow definition as far as the industry. But I think these would include programs that are designed to maintain. There's providing support for people that live at home, in-home assistance, as well as facilities, as well as memory care facilities and then the skilled nursing facilities. There's sort of a range. So to understand a little bit about what range is out there, which ones are licensed and subject to inspections, which ones maybe aren't and could be, and then that supply and demand one at the bottom is I think something that a lot of my constituents would like to see, is a little bit of an understanding of is there enough out there? Are there policy things that we could do to increase the supply in response to what we suspect is a growing demand? Senator Delegate Sickles, Mr. Chairman.
So one of the assisted living is not skilled nursing. Skilled nursing is regulated by the Department of Health, not by the Department of Social Services. But maybe that shouldn't be the way it is. I don't know. That there's a totally different department regulates something that's kind of similar, but we separated them out. And VDH right now is without leadership in their inspection part. It's in the newspapers. It's a huge mess. And so it's a more 5-alarm fire going on over there than the DSS. Not that we shouldn't study this. We should, and look at options and make sure with our aging population that elderly folks have choices of what to do. So I'm not opposed to this. It's just that the skilled nursing is at VDH, and they're not doing well. Yeah.
Got it.
Understood. Okay.
All right. Is there another slide?
One last one. Well, more than one, but we can do this, then we can stop. So, again, we were thinking about program areas. Another one would be to look at a few things related to Chesapeake Bay cleanup. It's our understanding the state has been making progress towards its cleanup goals, but there's still ways to go. And so we thought it might make sense to look at some of the key state regulatory programs that really contribute to those Bay goals. One of them would be the Department of Conservation and Recreation. Them and the soil and water conservation districts manage a cost share program. And through that program, farmers can receive assistance if they use best practices from an environmental perspective to control runoff. So a question there would be to see how well that program is run, if it's accomplishing what the legislative intent was. And a big part of that was to reduce nitrogen runoff into the bay. A similar issue that could be bundled with that would be to look at DOE's role in permitting. This would be on kind of the wastewater treatment plant discharge side, how well that program operates and is managed, again, with a lens on managing pollutant discharge into surface water that eventually obviously ends up into the bay. Nitrogen and phosphorus are the big challenges there. So a study looking at those two components as they relate to the health of the Chesapeake Bay would be an idea.
Okay. All right. So I think I see 6 different staff ideas. And then we had Delegate Rasul's not here, so we can just get rid of the AI thing, right? No.
He's sitting there. He just.
Oh, he's still there. He's just behind. I can't see him. No. He walked out. That's what I thought. All right. So, you have a slide, I guess, about our next step. So,
yeah.
I think we don't need to today pick the 4, right? I think we've given you probably 6 or 7 that you can work on. Is there anything we want to take off of staff's plate and say, hey, listen, don't bother coming up with a draft resolution on a particular area? I think you guys have heard from us that our priorities seem like, if anybody, I'm not meaning to speak for all of us, but this is what I've heard. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think DMAS was probably our top priority. I think ABC sounds like a good one. I don't know that it's a high priority, but it seems awfully ripe for that. And I know that Mr. Big Chairman really likes the innovation partnership.
I'm interested in that, but all these topics need studying as far as I'm concerned. So I'm willing to accept whatever the majority wants to do. That is an agency that's relatively new still. It is to develop our own, science resources and bring it into fruition versus the recruiting that we do at VEDP, bringing companies here. It's to create our own and grow our own companies, and from the very smallest entity. And, we don't put a lot of money into it, but would be good to know if it's succeeding or not, how well we're doing.
Gotcha.
But, yeah. Yeah,
So it sounds like we've got a strong top two at any rate for you. Is there anything, again, that we think they ought not to do any further work on?
Mr. Chairman, if you decided to do the BMPs and the wastewater runoff, I think you'd really need to include what is coming into the bay before it gets to Virginia. Because I know historically we had some, and this has been years ago, we had some presentations from our federal friends indicating that a lot of what ends up in the bay originates from Pennsylvania or Maryland, and it's not even being originated here. So if you decide to go with that one, I do think that that'd be important to consider.
All right. All right. So I think we haven't done a whole lot to winnow your idea. We like your ideas. We like all of them. I think we probably do want to see, we've given you guys some feedback on maybe some ways to expand the scope. I think, as your assisted living folk, one in particular, we gave you some ideas on maybe expanding the scope of that a little bit and fleshing that out. And I guess we'll have to vote. Once we've seen a little more detail, we can sort of vote on how to prioritize these. Is 6 too many? I mean, I know you said 4
I think
to
the
5.
draft study resolution 6 is fine. Would you agree with that? And we like to have more so you can winnow it down. So, but we're comfortable with that, I think.
All right.
Yeah, how many?
Mr. Chairman, we probably need one more meeting of the subcommittee. It sounds like for you guys to decide ultimately what your priorities are for next year.
Yeah, that's what the slide says, to maybe have for November to have the study subcommittee reconvene again
We can bring
with
these back
some
to you.
drafts in place to sort of rank them, give them our subcommittee recommendation to the full commission. And then our last full commission meeting of the year, we can adopt that program. Does that make sense to everybody? All right. So everybody's comfortable with where we are? Any further business to come before the subcommittee?
One additional item on this is a little bit longer term, but so we do these reviews of economic development incentives, and this function started quite a while ago, and we have almost gone all the way through all the economic development incentives. So we wanted to just put that on your radar. We have 3 options for you in terms of how to handle this. One thing you could do is just to have us go back to the beginning and start over. The thing you do is tell us to stop. But our recommendation would actually be to expand out to some other types of incentives. For example, the land conservation tax credit, the historic preservation tax credit. There's some others as well. And then just kind of be a little bit targeted in terms of which incentives we pick up as we go through, again, ones that have grown a lot or changed. But that way we wouldn't just kind of completely redo everything we've done. So we wanted to bring this to your attention in part because if you wanted us to broaden it out, we would need some direction from you at some point. It could be through it wouldn't have to be today, but a motion that we could bring before the commission. But the Welton Cooper Center that works with us on this will soon kind of begin on the next phase of this, and so we wanted to bring this up now. So if you have any reactions to that or our proposal, which is that first sub-bullet there.
So you mentioned environmental as one of the options. What are some of the other kinds of incentives that you're thinking of?
Kimberly gave me 2 that I've already said. So do we have any others, Kimberly?
Those are probably the two Justin mentioned are 2 big ones. We have
The second one, I'm sorry, the first one was the environmental. What was the second one?
the historic rehab tax credit. Those are, there's some other smaller ones that are
Those are in the 70 to 8. Those are pretty big dollar,
There's-
$70 to $8 million a year, right?
So you'd apply the same methodology that you've been using for the economic development incentives.
I think we'd have to augment it a little bit and we probably would still use Weldon Cooper. So, but it wouldn't be like just on the economic. It would be more on the effectiveness of it, right? Is
Right,
that
we
how
would have to look at what's the purpose of the incentive and then think about the way to evaluate it. And our thought would be maybe if you were interested in taking this approach in the spring, maybe at the May work plan meeting, we could have a list of incentives, maybe several groupings, and you could direct us through motion to look at any new ones or ones we've looked at, but maybe, the funding's increased or new economic development ones, and we could go forth each year. But we felt like that'd be a better use of us rather than just going and relooking at everything again.
All right, so everybody think that's a good idea for them to move in that direction?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator McDougal.
I would think that maybe you want to take a dollar number floor, and so look at things that either expanded over a certain range or have over a certain amount of impact, because you can spend a lot of time looking at all the little ones and we not move the needle on anything. But if we pick the big ones or the ones that have new money into them, then I would think that that's a better use of your time.
I think we've looked at all of them, and so some of them are pretty small, so I think we would agree with that approach,
absolutely,
right?
Senator McDougal. We completely agree with you on that.
Okay, so you guys need a motion by May is what you're saying, but when we come back from session to...
If this is the approach that the commission wants to take, then that would give us some time to kind of develop a better list of ones you may want to look at, either new ones or existing ones that we've looked at, but there may be a reason to look at them. Maybe they haven't implemented any of our recommendations, or maybe they've had large increases. And then in May, we could give you kind of some buckets of choices, and you could direct us through motion.
All right. I'm sensing nodding heads around here. I think that the sense of the subcommittee is that, yes, we think that that's the right approach to take. I don't think anybody here wants you to stop doing them all together or start over on the old ones from the beginning. So I think that your recommendation is probably the one we'd like to adopt, and we can be ready for something to have the full commission. We can recommend the full commission vote on something for our first meeting after session.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
All right.
That's all we had.
All right.
And it was a lot.
Any other
Thank you.
business? If not, subcommittee is adjourned.